You ever wonder how thousands of planes manage to fly around a busy airport without a single traffic light? It seems like it should be chaos, right? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on the invisible highways in the sky. It's this hidden system that, believe it or not, keeps millions of us safe every single day.
Okay, so if you've flown a bunch, you've definitely seen this. You're getting ready to land, you look out the window, and the plane doesn't just, fly straight in. Instead, it makes these sharp 90-degree turns. It's like you're flying in a giant rectangle in the sky. And no, that's not the pilot taking a scenic detour. It's an absolutely critical safety procedure, and we're going to break down exactly why that happens.
All right, so to really get why that rectangle exists, we first have to talk about a really fundamental problem. How in the world do you manage traffic when you can't just, hit the brakes?
I mean, think about it. When you're driving your car, traffic management is, well, it's pretty straightforward. If something goes wrong, you can slam on the brakes, pull over, just stop. But pilots, they just don't have that luxury. An airplane has to keep moving forward to stay in the air. You can't exactly pull over onto the shoulder at 2,000 feet, right? And that one simple fact is why having a super organized system isn't just a nice idea, it is absolutely essential.
And the solution to that whole can't stop problem? It's this: the airport traffic pattern. The easiest way to think about it is like the official rules of the road, but for the sky right around an airport. It's this predefined, totally predictable path that every single pilot follows. And because of that, everyone knows where everyone else is supposed to be. It's what creates order out of what could be total chaos. So, how exactly does this system create that perfect rectangle we were talking about, the one you see from your window seat? All right, let's break it down leg by leg.
Okay, the very first rule of this invisible highway is all about altitude. The standard for a traffic pattern is typically 1,000 feet above the airport. And according to the FAA, this isn't just some random number. Using this one common altitude is the key to minimizing the risk of collisions. It basically puts every plane on the same level playing field, vertically speaking. That way, pilots can just focus on keeping their distance side to side.
So this journey to the runway, it follows a really precise path. First up, the pilot flies what's called the downwind leg. They're flying parallel to the runway, just in the opposite direction they're going to land. This is a super important time for them to get all their before landing checks done. Then, they make that 90-degree turn onto the base leg. That gets them set up for the final turn. And then boom, they make one last turn onto the final approach, which is that straight shot descending right down to the runway. And there you have it. That's your rectangle.
Now, it's easy to think there's always an air traffic controller in a tower somewhere, directing this whole dance. But what happens when there isn't one?
Yeah, so most of the big airports you fly into are what we call towered. You've got controllers giving specific instructions for everything. But, and this is a big but, the vast majority of airports in the world are actually non-towered. At these places, the pilots are the ones in charge. They're all talking to each other on a shared radio frequency, and they have to rely completely on following that standard traffic pattern to keep from running into each other. This is why that procedure is so incredibly important. It's even more vital when there's no one officially in charge.
So how do you merge onto this invisible highway without causing a problem? Well, the FAA has a very specific preferred way to do it. Here's the deal. Pilots approach the pattern, they get down to that magic 1,000-foot altitude, and then, this is the key part, they enter at a 45-degree angle to the downwind leg. Why that specific angle? Because it gives the pilot joining the pattern the best possible view of everyone else, so they can spot other planes and just merge smoothly into the flow. It's all about making sure everyone is predictable. And look, this need for everyone to be predictable, it's not just for convenience. It is literally a life or death matter. Because when things go wrong near an airport, we've learned that they tend to go wrong in very specific and very dangerous ways. This quote from the National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB, really just cuts right to the chase. It says the most probable cause of mid-air collisions is the pilot failing to see and avoid other aircraft. Think about that. Despite all the amazing technology we have, the #1 job of every pilot is still to just look out the window and not hit anything. The traffic pattern isn't just some arbitrary procedure, it's a tool. It's designed to help pilots deal with a very simple human problem. You can't see everywhere at once.
And when you look at the data from the FAA, it shows you exactly where the biggest danger is. Get this, a staggering 68%, that's over 2/3, of mid-air collisions happen right on the final and short final approach. Short final is that last little bit, just seconds before the wheels touch down. This is the moment when multiple planes are all aiming for the exact same narrow strip of concrete. It makes these last few minutes of any flight the most critical, by far.
And the data shows some other really surprising things.
You might think these accidents happen in bad weather at night, right? Nope. Most of them happen in broad daylight with perfect visibility. And they usually happen between planes going in the same direction, like when one plane is catching up to another on that final approach. And here's the kicker. Nearly all of them happen at or near those uncontrolled airports and below that 1,000-foot pattern altitude. It just goes to show how incredibly important it is for pilots to be disciplined in these environments.
Okay, so after all that, what are the big takeaways? How does this whole invisible system really work to keep us safe up there?
It really all boils down to just a few key things. First, traffic patterns are those invisible highways that prevent total chaos. Second, that 1,000-foot altitude, that is the magic number for safety. Third, a pilot's most important job, above all else, is to see and avoid other planes. And last but not least, we know from the data that the final approach is the most critical part of the flight where you have to be the most careful.
So, the next time you're on a plane and you're coming in for a landing, do me a favor. Look out the window. When you see that wing dip as the pilot makes the turn from downwind to base, or when you see the runway perfectly lined up ahead of you on final, now you'll know exactly what's happening. You're not just on a flight path, you're witnessing a carefully choreographed dance. You're flying on an invisible highway that's designed to keep you and everyone else up there perfectly safe.